Ladies and gentlemen, Season 2, Episode 17, Mirror Mirror, a filler episode. Like, for real. Okay, so, given how... I was going to make a commentary about how weird it is that the caravan isn't watertight, and then I realized that, actually, no, that makes perfect sense. Like, think about how much damage this poor caravan has taken over the last year. So, again, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, this thing is going to have watery, leaky problems, and Evo not going to bed problems, and all kinds of other stuff like that. They then showcase one of the better visual representations of the acid test I've ever seen. Let me explain. The acid test is when two people live together for the first time. And you're probably thinking, how is that the acid test? Well, here's the deal. Most people have dozens, if not even more, little things that they do that they don't even notice that they do. It's our little quirks, right? Our little tidbits or habits or the way we interact or anything like that, right? For example, I'll tell you something because I'm doing it right now. I pop my fingers very regularly. I do it without even thinking about it because I didn't even notice I was doing it until I was in the middle of this discussion. So we all have those little things that we do, right? Maybe it's about how we shower, or maybe it's about where we leave the dishes, or whatever, right? Yeah, exactly. No, it's a very good idea. If you're going to get married with someone, you should probably live together with them as the acid test first to see if you can withstand the acid. That's why it's called that. I didn't come up with that name, by the way. So, yeah, we all have dozens of little things that we do, and, well, it's different when you deal with them on a day-to-day, daily basis. If you hang out with a friend every evening, that's cool, but that's like, what, a couple of hours? If you live with someone, you have to deal with that all the time. And so all of a sudden, you get to deal with all of those little things constantly. And it can be very frustrating. And some people can learn to live with it, and some can't. And so that's the acid test. So yeah, you have a bunch of people who don't really get along perfectly well to begin with, all suddenly living in the same relatively confined spot for about a year. Yeah, they're all probably very, very sick of each other. So I believe all of this. Naturally, then a tree comes down. We'll come back to that. And it's okay. There's a house over there. The house of yesterday's tomorrows, also known as today. Rapunzel, thank you. That's my line. Oh, yeah, there's also other things you don't display when visiting. That's true. Like, well, I don't want to go too down that rabbit hole, but in the long, long ago, back in like 2002 or 3, the last time I actually had a girlfriend, one of the things that I made a regular habit of is anytime we were visiting, I would go and immediately take a shower beforehand, so I would smell as fresh as possible for her. I don't take a shower constantly, right? I take a shower once a day on average, mostly because of skincare reasons, but the point remaining. I also tend to do a lot of exercise throughout the course of my day to keep myself physically active. So I probably smell pretty bad by the end of my day, is what I'm trying to say. I try not to, but I probably do. And so someone living with me would have to deal with that, and they would hate living with me, and they would stab me and kill me and leave me outside as like a warning to others. So Matthew is immediately weird, and obviously evil, and very suspicious, and a bit of an asshole. Okay. Cassandra... Did they name her this on purpose? Is that deliberate? This is not the first time she has been the provider of the Cassandra truth, and as per the usual Cassandra truth, nobody's been listening to her, so... Okay. Naturally, Shorty is not a horrible person. It's so unusual that he's not just a completely garbage human being. Huh. So she rushes over to get Eugene, and they actually watch Shorty get Lance replaced, and blah, 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 blah. Can I just say, I dislike how many additional lines Shorty has in this episode? Not because I dislike Shorty per se, but more like he doesn't stop using the drunk voice. Even when he's his mere replicant, and obviously not drunk, he still talks in his little bit of a tipsy voice, and it's just, why? Why do that? You could actually have the actors switch tones. You've done this. You remember Dale? The Giovanni, aka Dale. You've done this exact same trick before. Jesus Christ. Anyways. So then we have the Changeling Dilemma. You know the Changeling Dilemma. Nowadays, popularized by a video game called Among Us. The Changeling Dilemma is, one of us is probably a fake. How do we suss that out? And there's actually a lot of ways that a lot of fiction has used to play with this. I happen to enjoy the Changeling Dilemma, even though it's occasionally done really, really badly. Cough, cough, Star Trek the original series. Holy crap. Like, there should have been so many ways to suss out which one was the real Kirk. But no, we have to go with, like, nonsense things. Just moving on. Anyways, I do overall like the concept, and they do some good stuff with this over the years. Deep Space Nine plays with this a little bit. We've seen this over, of course, on John Carpenter's The Thing. And, of course, I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but there have been a few. Hell, MLP played with this as well. Yeah, anybody could have done that. Screw Monty's house. It's you! Yeah, we just scan everyone's brains every day. Boom! No problems. Oh, God, they actually did that. Point being, yeah, too many Pinkie Pies. Yep. Point being, it's a fun little thing, and I do like the ways that they all prove that they are who they say it. Oh, excuse me. Because there's something I've mentioned a few times. Even in real life, it's helpful to have some way to suss out this kind of a situation. Not that we have shapeshifters or changelings or aliens in real life, trust me. But it's helpful to be able to know when someone else is who they say they are. After all, it's entirely possible to have a full conversation with someone without ever seeing their face, or hearing their voice for that matter. Yeah, exactly. So there are plenty of good reasons to have just little things you can say and just kind of slide into a conversation, right? Usually traps in terms of dialogue, like if you suspect something. It's also nice to have the things that literally nobody else knows about, right? I've talked about this concept before because this concept has come up several times when it comes to fiction, but also because this is a real thing that I really do in real life. Me and my sister and me and several of my friends all have individual little things that we can know and we can say just in case. Hasn't come up yet, but it's there. Anyways, so then they decide to figure out, okay, are you Eugene? And Eugene gives all the right answers. I couldn't help but notice, even when they were first giving the questions, that these were all kind of softball questions. She had to demonstrate something that was very her. All he had to do was answer a quiz. Then they make Cassandra do a thing again, the slicing. And I noticed that, and that's the moment I was like, oh, okay, Eugene's a duplicate. Okay, cool. So, Cassandra, of course, is revealed to not be the real one, because she can't do the apple slice thing. Duh. And then we find out that Eugene, is actually replaced. Rorschach. Yeah, should have asked for the smolder right up front. It's such a thing for him. They've mentioned it several times just in this season, for that matter. I do like the idea of changelings being kind of competitive about this sort of thing. Like, oh, I can do a better replacement. I can last longer without anybody figuring out something's unusual, right? Like, there's some interesting cultural ideas there that they can play with. They don't, obviously, because we have no idea what these mirror things are. They're just mirror things. In fact, how many of you noticed that they don't actually show what these people are? Even when they're actually put back in the mirror, they still just look at like the original characters. Here's the deal. I have a feeling they were actually supposed to look like something else at some point, and sometime along the development chain, that was canceled. There's a like the best example of this. There's actually several, but the best example is when evil Rapunzel's like, rather than tell you what I am, why don't I show you? And then, other than her eyes glowing red and her fingernails growing longer, she doesn't change at all. However, she does climb along the wall several times, and there's this weird cracking, chittering sound when she moves. And in fact, usually the camera will zoom in on her very normal human hands while it's going as if we're seeing some kind of monster arm. And the screeching, rasping thing, you get where I'm going with this. Like, I feel like they were going for some kind of crab spider monster thing like they had on the knocker on the front of the door. And for whatever reason that was canceled, and so they decided to just use their normal human mirror forms instead of anything else. I don't know why, though, because, again, they left the sound effects in. Everything else was still there. And like, in fact, if you close your eyes and see and just go back through the scenes, you could probably hear some kind, like, why don't I show you? And you could, like, picture something in your head as happening. But then when you watch the scene, she's just standing there. If you pay attention, the camera angle even changes to zoom out and show more of her, but there's nothing more to show. It's very strange. And again, it makes me wonder what was originally supposed to be here, or if this is just someone changing their mind at the last minute. I have no idea. Anyways, so yeah, what are these things? They never really explained their goal either. They mentioned they're a hive mind, and yet they think individually and can't tell when someone else isn't one of them, which a hive mind would be able to do. We also see several times that they have a goal of being free forever, with no actual explanation of what that means or why. So they're just kind of threats of the week. And, you know, weirdly enough, I'm okay with that. Because part of the thing that Season 2 has been doing is exactly this. Making more wild, fantastical, magical things that they run into and encounter periodically. And I'm okay with that. I mean, even the mother and the father with the bird thing, those are just fae. Right? Like, those were prototypical fae. Copy-paste. And yeah, maybe these particular people are just mirror monsters. You know, horrible reflections or something. Yeah, it's kind of a magical flexing. I'm okay with that. So we have some fun, you know. The smolder works on fake Rapunzel. That's actually really amusing. But right at the end of the episode kind of loses me, to be totally honest with you. Because they're like, no, we're getting out of here, because duh. And so they go to leave, and then they see that it's raining. And so they decide to stay indoors. Now, I'm sorry. Rain sucks, you know. It can cause issues with regards to lowering your immune system, which makes it easier for you to get sick and all that. But, like, I'll take the storm over staying in the house, the very creepy, giant red flag house. Like, I'm sorry. I don't buy this for a millisecond. The fact that they decide to stay is one of the biggest GM fiat that I've ever seen. Yeah, I will literally take the leaky carriage over the obviously evil house, which we knew even before we saw there were mirror monsters in it, with the obviously evil person who's in charge of it. By the way, did you notice that they made sure that the evil guy was like, just in case we didn't catch that? I know they didn't see that, but still. No, I'm sorry. I've played too many video games to stay in the evil house. Thanks. I'm out. Peace. So yeah, pretty much. They decide to stay in Hansel's house, or the witch's house after avoiding being eaten. Cool. And yeah, we don't even see what's going on with Max and I forget her name. Fidela, thank you. Oh, and you mentioned this, Lord Hermon. At the end, we find out, why is this shot even here? It turns out there's an axe, because someone chopped the tree down on purpose. Yeah? Like, I guessed that the moment I saw the geography of the situation. There's you know, they chopped down the tree, and there's a house right there. Of course they deliberately chopped down the tree so that they would go to the house. Duh? Like, I felt weird that they felt the need to point that out, but I'm going to let that go, because that's there for people who didn't put two and two together, because the house isn't, like, extremely evil or anything, right? They didn't go out of their way to show that this guy is evil and sus, and then have him act all blasé when they nearly get killed by mirror monsters. The one and only thing I will give them is they agree to go ahead and have a watch. Someone who's going to keep watch, even while sleeping indoors, which does say a lot about how little faith they have in this place being safe. I'll give you that one episode. We'll see if that lasts into the next episode. Don't worry, Cassandra's the only one giving watch, and everyone else is going to be like, ah, thanks, Cassandra, you suck. And then they're going to, like, punch her in the gut, and she's going to be like, rawr, how dare you. And then everyone's going to be like, why are you so terrible, Cassandra? Because this whole... I'm sorry, I'm just getting this weird vibe that they're trying to make Cassandra out to be worse than she is, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. Anyways. It's okay. I've actually already given my thoughts. I forgot to mention this on camera. Excuse me, because last night I realized when I thought it was weird what was going on in the treehouse episode, or the treehouse. Wow, Jesus, the tree episode. The most obvious thing is that this is the third act breakup. Like, but of course Cassandra can't literally leave the party, so they're having the third act breakup while having her still be in the party. That's all it is now. And then at the final episode, she'll be like, "Don't worry, I got your back," and then she'll defend them against, I don't know, Shorty. And I've got your back, Rapunzel. You'll notice that several of these episodes have been dedicated towards Rapunzel and Cassandra trying to mend fences, so that makes sense. Either way, fun episode. Ultimately, yellow, but good yellow, right? Solid yellow. This is once again, this is not the first time we've said this about season 2. This is just solid marshmallowy fluff, right? You ever get actual, like, a jar of marshmallow fluff and just eat it straight from the jar? No, I'm the only one who did that. I would never, of course, I would never do something so insane and crazy. But hypothetically, if you were to do that, that's what this episode reminds me of. It's enjoyable and it's fun, but ultimately it's kind of forgettable. And right now I have a sore throat, so I don't want to eat marshmallow fluff. We still haven't quite overtaken season 1 yet, but we're getting very close to it. Like right now, so season 1's already locked in at 44.7%. Season 2 is up to 41.27%, and we have 4 more episodes to go. So depending on how these last few line up, looking at that lineup one by one is fascinating. Both seasons have had 1 lamentation each. Season 1 had 2 blues, whereas this one has only 1. 6 greens to 3, 8 yellows to 4, 4 oranges to 7, and then both have had 1 red. Yeah, that's pretty leaning heavily towards season 2. Would all blues leave it short? Yes. That if somehow the next 4 episodes are all blue, it will barely be lower than season 1. Which, yeah. Excuse me. Regardless, next it's time for season 2, episode 18. You're kidding me!